Okay, everyone, welcome back to the show. And we're talking about something today that I think is very real-time relevant, with some caveats, but it's not as simple as some of you would like to make it out to be. So let's just dig in a little bit. Before we do that, we'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, drop a comment here and there, ask a question. If you need real estate help, you can let us know. There's always more info down in the description on that. So the subject matter for today's video is how low can you offer on a house before you wind up just being an insult offer that's not going to get responded to, okay? Because there is sort of this sweet spot, and it really is going to depend a bit from house to house. But there's a sweet spot where you go, okay, we took your price down to a degree that is aggressive, you're pushing it, but I don't think it's an insult yet, because once you get into the insult category, chances are you're not even going to get a response, which is counterproductive, because it's like, well, damn, we didn't even wind up having a dialogue. We went so low that they basically just gave us a middle finger and kept the house on the market. So where is that sweet spot where you're not paying more than you should pay, you're not insulting them, but you're still getting a good deal? Where is that spot? So, and the reality is this, because the world has largely or at least the U.S. has largely shifted to a buyer's real estate market right now, meaning it favors buyers more than it does sellers. You are seeing more and more of this, right? I've been on both ends of this lately, both on the listing end of it as someone who is receiving low offers, and on the buying end as someone who is now expected to make low offers per my buyers. And the answer is this: there's a few variables that are really going to depend on where you want that offer to be. One of the things, and really I'd say the primary one, is going to be what's the on the MLS sheets, excuse me, sometimes it'll say DOM, days on market. So how many days on market has this house been, right? If it's been on the market for, let's just say, 7 days, man, like you haven't ridden out the clock long enough for that house being on the market to start like sending these lowball offers. I'm not saying you can't take a little bit off. You could, and you can ultimately do whatever you want. I'm just saying after 7 days, if I got a real lowball offer on a listing of mine, I'd be like, dude, like, we're not gonna take 50 grand off the price. It's been on the market for 7 days, right? We're still waiting to see. We're still in that kind of feel it out period. Like, what's the temperature of the buyer's market in relation to our listing right now? But if you hit a point where it's a month, 2 months, for sure 3 months, hey, now you are in that category. You're in the pool with everyone else where the buyers are going, okay, yeah, we're gonna knock some dollars off of that listing price, because clearly in a month no one has bit in and decided to put your house under contract. So length of time is going to be a big thing. How much you reduce the price is also going to depend on the price point, right? Because you really have to think about it more from a percentages game than you have to think of it as like a lump sum number game, right? Because if you say, hey, $1 million house where we knock off 50 grand, right? What would that be? 5%? Versus a $500,000 house where we knock off 50 grand. You go, well, that's a double from a percentage point perspective, right? Like, that's 10% versus 5%, world of difference. So someone who owns a $500,000 house and someone who owns $1 million house are probably in a little bit different financial perspective, positions there. So you have to factor that in. And then the other thing that I would look at, just kind of, it's more of one of those insider things you're probably going to need your agent to look into, which of course we would love to be your agent if you need an agent to buy or sell a house. But I would look through the MLS history to see what's the history of the listing, right? Did it, hypothetical scenario, did it go on the market and a month later it went under contract, and then a week or two later it fell back under contract and went back on the market? Did that happen? Okay, because you go, okay, cool. So something went wrong when it was under contract. That could either be the inspection was too rough for the buyers, or it could be their either their financing fell through or the house didn't appraise and the sellers were unwilling to adjust their value in terms of what they were going to accept on the house. So there's different things you might pick up on that if you just look through the history of the house, especially if you start seeing it fall out of contract a couple of times. Hey, that's starting to tell you something, which is, hey, these sellers have had a rough go and they're probably ready to get this damn thing over with. So here's a real world example. Had some buyer clients recently, and we got a house under contract. So the house was listed at 700, and they had no price reductions, right? It had been at 700, and at the time that we put an offer in on it, it had been on the market for 51 days. So you go, okay, 51 days, no price reductions yet, and it had been under contract and then fell out of contract once, right? And also, again, being smart and looking through the things that are disclosed, at least from an agent's perspective, I also saw that this is an estate sale. And I also learned that, hey, the owners, right, who are selling it, I guess as part of the estate sale, that whole part was a little unclear, had owned it for like 41, 42 years. So what does that tell me, right? The information there indicates they probably own this thing outright, right? They probably have no mortgage at all, which means that whatever they accept on the house is what they're gonna get. AKA, it's not like they're operating on this razor thin margin where they've only got 50 grand in equity in the house. It's like, no, they probably own the house outright unless something super weird happened and they took out a HELOC or something like that. So ultimately what we wound up doing, just based on the circumstances and also based on the fact that my guys were gonna have to do a total remodel on it, we wound up offering $650, and I told them don't bother countering, like that's the real number, which might be a horrible negotiation tactic, but sometimes I just say, look, instead of giving you a 630 offer and then eventually coming to 650, sometimes I'm just gonna tell you, look, 650 is the number, and just so you know, that's the number, okay? Don't this isn't a game, like that's the actual number. And they rejected it because they thought they had another offer coming. And then they came back a day later and they said, well, if you're still in, we'll take it. And we're like, cool, we're in. And then we wound up getting a little bit reduced off the price based on a couple of inspection things. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the house wound up selling for $635 compared to the $700 listing price. But it was a value that we thought was fair. Walking through the home and one feeling that they had listed it too high, also based on the fact that it had been around for 51 days and that it had been under contract and fell out, and just all the data, we thought, hey, look, 50 grand, while a chunk, I mean, that's a chunk off the purchase price. Don't get me wrong. I told another agent this and he was like, oh, wow, you guys went aggressive on that. And I was like, I think we went aggressive, but not insult, which is where we're trying to stay away from, because insult gets you ignored. Aggressive gets you a response, right? So there's no clear-cut answer on this. Most of it is going to depend on your market, and it's going to be house-to-house dependent based on, well, what are the days on market and what is the condition of the house and yada, yada, yada. Okay, so that's it, guys. A quick I can't actually recommend this, to be honest with you. I'll tell you why. So this is a very special bottle of whiskey to me personally. It is called Miracle on 1911th Street, and you will see on the back side of this, or front side, depending on how you look at it, there is a photo of me and something that looks like Shrek. And I am a child and he is Santa and I am in his lap. And it's very weird and uncomfortable for everyone, which is why we designed it that way. This is the 1911 Syndicate whiskey. It was a holiday release. We only made 75 bottles of it. This was bottle number 1 because, of course, I wanted to have the first couple for me. But this was a neat collaboration project, kind of a passion project we did with the whiskey blendery down in Texas. It is a rye finished in a maple syrup barrel. I cracked my first bottle of it over the weekend, and at 104 proof, it's punchy. Okay, it's punchy. 104 proof on a bourbon that's going to be softer and, generally speaking, a little bit sweeter, right? Because it's just a different type of grain. 104 proof, easy day, no problem. 104 proof on a rye. Get ready there, fella, right? So this is pretty intense. To be honest, it came out more intense than I thought it was gonna be. You still get that maple syrup on the back end of it, right? Really tasty stuff. I'm very, very happy with how this came out. Unfortunately, you can't buy it. They all sold out, and that was great as well. So, hey, if we do it again, stay tuned to the 1911 Syndicate channel. But yes, that is that. And unfortunately, this is just me talking about something cool that you can no longer get. Next year, go faster, and you get some. As I mentioned, if you need real estate help, let us know. Subscribe to the channel, drop us a comment. You can go to 1911syndicate.com, check in on all the good things we got going on, especially with real estate, and let us know if you need help. Talk to you guys later.